120 mil pessoas afetadas. Isso é um grande avanço. E em 2010 tivemos 7 mil pessoas que precisaram de apoio. Portanto, este declinar dos números e encoraja-nos muito por causa do sistema de aviso prévio que nós estamos a instaurar a nível do globo.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Obrigado.
Could I ask Mr. Munir to give the lessons from Bangladesh, not Pakistan, Bangladesh. Bangladesh probably different lessons.
Thank you. What I would like to say is that in the case of Bangladesh, it's unique in the sense that Bangladesh is not only disaster prone, but it has now become a frontline state in the face of climate change. We are considered as one of the countries which may be considered as ground zero for climate change impacts. Therefore, problems have got compounded because it is not only regular disasters that we are faced with, these are now being aggravated and compounded by the threat and the implications of climate change. In the case of Bangladesh, I would like to bring you some positive stories from the ground. First of all, the country has a very comprehensive disaster management program in place. And the good part of the story of the disaster management program is that it is nationally designed, it is nationally owned, so therefore there is a considerable amount of national ownership of the whole strategy that is in place. It has also taken note of some of the indigenous capacities of the people and the community to adapt to the ways in which it manages disasters, and has placed on the ground some of the needs that are critically important to the people in the front lines of disasters. It, for example, has a series of multi-purpose cyclone shelters all along the coastlines where people can take shelters during cyclones and also bring in their very critical animals with them. It has now also created a wide array of green belt along the coastline which can take the first shelter or the first brunt of the cyclones that come and visit us very often. We have done a great deal in empowering women at the grassroots in the rural areas, and we have not only considered addressing the vulnerabilities of women in disaster areas and disaster situations, we have turned vulnerability into strength and assets. Therefore, through the very wide network of the Grameen or the microfinance networks that we have at the grassroots, we have utilized that capacity in turning these women into disaster preparedness champions. I'm sure those in the audience will agree with me that there is nobody who would care more for the protection of the children, of the families, than the mothers. So if you empower them, they become the best soldiers and the generals in the face of any threat of disasters that they might face them. We have, as the Minister said, a very comprehensive early warning system which is bottoms up. So therefore we have engaged community at all levels in providing the early warning system to the people in the disaster prone areas, and in that we have used not only vertical and horizontal communication, I would say we have now turned that into an all-round communication. It's a 360-degree communication where people can talk to others, where local government can talk to the communities, where the government can talk to the local communities and local bodies. Very recently, we have also integrated IT or information technology into the warning system, and due to the very high penetration of mobile or cell phone system in the rural areas, we are now able to send text messages to warn people of any impending disasters. We have tried to integrate the private sector into disaster preparedness programs by convincing them that disaster or the subsequent consequences is bad for business. So we have not only tried to enrich or recruit them with their empathy, but we have also tried to make them that this is a good business decision. The Commissioner very rightly said earlier that demographic pressures are extremely critical in increasing vulnerability, and that is a problem we are facing greatly in Bangladesh. But we have, in that case, seen that a large portion of the demographic bulge of the country is in the youth population. So therefore, we have tried to engage the youth in volunteering, in preparing for people who would work practically on the ground in disaster preparedness programs and also managing the consequences of disasters. In that approach, we have also tried to include the role of the civil society organization, the CSOs, in building and incorporating what is a whole of society's approach to disaster management, and that is also paying us good dividends. One of the consequences of disaster in the management phase is the government's institutional capacity in handling with recovery operations after disasters. And in that, we have found that due to the shortage of many established institutions in developing countries, the military becomes a critical asset in the hands of the government. Therefore, the Bangladesh military has been trained and given capacity in managing and handling disaster recovery operations, and they have now grown to a level of excellence which can be seen in all their operations. In all, there is a lot of challenge to the country, but we have also a good story to bring to you as we are preparing for disasters.
Thank you very much. I think your last remark was very interesting when you combine the military with community-based organizations. I think for many of us that doesn't come naturally, where we see the military as a top-down organization, the community is bottom-up. Could you explain a little bit why it works and what were the kind of moments where you saw a breakthrough?
The reason it works because it is a critical asset in the hand of the government in preparing and managing disasters. So therefore, we have not only prepared the military, we have also given military tasks to incorporate their capacity with a particular level of the society or the community. Most battalions who are deployed in a particular area has a secondary mission of disaster management in addition to the primary mission of the defense of the country. In the secondary mission of disasters, they constantly work with the community in preparing them and also training them for disaster preparedness tasks. Therefore, they not only have the skills, but they know the community, they know the people, they know the community leaders. So when anything happens, they are very easily integrated into the management system.
Thank you very much. Let's move to Nepal. Nepal has been one of the first countries, developing countries, that had really a multi-stakeholder approach to address disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation. A big growth program facilitated by the big World Bank and other major donors. We'd be very interested to hear from both of you, from your different perspectives, how it was set up, how it works, and where you're now in that process.
Thank you. Honorable Kristalina, Honorable Minister, members on the dais, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you today on behalf of Government of Nepal on the important topic of disaster risk reduction in the age of climate change. As you may know, Nepal is considered the fourth most vulnerable country in the world. We experience frequent flooding, landslide, and fires, which have been increasing in frequency and intensity due to impact of climate change. My country is also at risk of a major earthquake, which is predicted to have a devastating impact, including on our capital Kathmandu, similar to that seen in Haiti in 2010. We therefore see an urgent need to scale up our efforts in disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation to avoid losing the development gains that have been made in recent years. But our challenge is finding ways to mobilize the resources needed to make a significant and lasting impact. As a country still facing widespread poverty, economic and political uncertainty, we recognize it needs more than just a willing government to make a difference. So, I would like to briefly share with you an example of how I have tried to tackle these challenges through a new initiative called the Nepal Risk Reduction Consortium. The consortium is led by the Government of Nepal. It brings together a unique group of financial institutions, development and humanitarian partners to address the top 5 priorities of the National Disaster Risk Management Strategy. We have called these 5 areas flags